Wyoming. America's last wild bastion stretches beneath skies that seem to have no boundaries. "3,000 meters of average elevation, bison herds grazing undisturbed, and rivers flowing through forgotten canyons." In the silence of these remote lands, nature still commands. The least populated state in America holds treasures that defy all logic. Endless prairies where antelope run, snowstorms that transform the landscape, hot springs that paint the earth. This is the Wyoming that doesn't appear on postcards. Raw, immense, and mathematically extreme. A land where geology dictates the law, waiting for man to learn how to listen again. Yellowstone National Park. Imagine finding yourself at the center of a natural laboratory where the Earth shows its most primitive force. Yellowstone stretches across nearly 9,000 square kilometers between Wyoming, Montana, and Idaho, resting above an active magma chamber which feeds over 10,000 geothermal phenomena. Here, the planet breathes through fumaroles that hiss steam at temperatures exceeding 90 degrees, while mud pots bubble and boil, creating landscapes that seem to belong to another world. The park safeguards the largest intact temperate ecosystem on the planet, where herds of bison cross infinite valleys and grizzly bears emerge from lodgepole pine forests. And precisely these pines have a unique characteristic, namely their cones open only with the extreme heat of fires, allowing the forest to regenerate from its own ashes. Walking on these grounds, feet tread upon an Earth's crust barely 3 kilometers thick, beneath which lies one of the most powerful geological forces of the continent. Every steam jet and every underground gurgle tells the story of a living planet in continuous transformation, where the balance between destruction and creation manifests every day, right before the eyes of those who know how to observe. Devil's Tower. A monolith of volcanic rock rises from Wyoming's prairie like a natural skyscraper, 264 meters tall. Devil's Tower, which the native Lakota call Bear's Den, represents one of America's most fascinating geological mysteries. This formation was created millions of years ago when molten magma solidified underground, then was exposed to erosion, which consumed the surrounding rocks. Its perfectly fluted walls, formed by columns of volcanic rock that rise toward the sky, attract climbers from around the world. But for Native American tribes, this place remains sacred. According to legend, in fact, the vertical grooves are the claw marks of a giant bear, which was trying to reach some girls who had taken refuge on the summit. Nevertheless, observing this stone tower that dominates the surrounding landscape, one understands why it became America's first national monument in 1906. Teton Mountain Range. These peaks represent the perfect example of how geology can create natural architectural masterpieces. The Teton Range extends for about 65 kilometers along Wyoming's western border, with Grand Teton reaching 4,199 meters in altitude. The name derives from 18th century French trappers, who called these mountains Les Trois Tetons, meaning the three breasts, referring to the three main peaks. What makes this landscape unique, however, is the absence of foothills. The Tetons, in fact, rise from the plain, creating an elevation difference of over 2,100 meters in very few kilometers. This geological configuration formed when enormous blocks of Earth's crust tilted and lifted along deep fracture lines. Mountaineers consider these peaks among the most technical challenges of the North American continent, and precisely the north faces, perpetually in shadow, maintain glaciers and snowfields even in midsummer, creating climbing conditions that require high-level alpine experience. Grand Teton National Park. Established in 1929, this park represents one of North America's most intact ecosystems, where the original wilderness has remained substantially unchanged. It extends over 1,250 square kilometers of protected territory, which includes not only the iconic peaks, but also prairies, coniferous forests, and wetlands, fundamental for wildlife migration. Jackson Hole Valley, the heart of the park, hosts one of the continent's largest concentrations of megafauna. With elk herds exceeding 10,000 specimens, black and grizzly bears, gray wolves reintroduced in the 90s, and over 300 bird species. The Snake River flows through the park, creating meanders and marshy areas, while the Mormon Row Historic District preserves the historical structures of the first Mormon settlers, who established themselves in the valley in the 1890s with iconic wooden cabins that stand out against the Teton peaks. In this park, moreover, animal migration corridors are constantly monitored. During winter, for example, when temperatures drop below -30 degrees Celsius, thousands of elk migrate toward safer refuges, creating a natural spectacle that attracts researchers from around the world. Visitors finally can explore over 320 kilometers of trails which cross different ecosystems, including alpine lakes at 3,000 meters elevation and valley floor prairies. Bighorn Mountains and Canyon. In the heart of north-central Wyoming, landscapes open where geological time becomes tangible. It's precisely the bighorn sheep, which move agilely on the most impervious rocky walls, that have given their name to these majestic mountains. The mountains rise from the prairie, reaching 4,000 meters in altitude, while the canyons that cross them tell millions of years of terrestrial history through perfectly visible rock layers. Bighorn Canyon, carved by the river of the same name, creates vertical walls that rise over 300 meters from the clear waters of the artificial lake. These territories were historically the heart of the 19th century Indian Wars, when Crow and Lakota tribes contested the rich hunting valleys. Nevertheless, here, the ecosystem variety is extraordinary, ranging from valley deserts to alpine meadows, where over 1,500 plant species flourish. Old Faithful. Every 90 minutes or so, a column of boiling water launches toward the sky, reaching heights that vary between 30 and 55 meters. Old Faithful owes its name to the extraordinary regularity of eruptions, a phenomenon that continues since it was discovered in 1870 and which has made this geyser the most famous in the world. The mechanism that feeds these eruptions is a perfect example of natural engineering, with surface water that infiltrates through rock fractures until reaching underground chambers heated by magma, which lies just a few kilometers deep. When the temperature exceeds 120 degrees, the accumulated pressure violently pushes the water toward the surface through a narrow conduit that functions like a gigantic pressure cooker. The rest is done by the almost chronometric precision, which allows visitors to plan their visit, but each eruption maintains its unique character. Grand Prismatic Spring. It's the largest hot spring in the United States and appears from the sky like a multicolored eye open on the earth. With its 110-meter diameter and a temperature that reaches 70 degrees at the center, Grand Prismatic Spring owes its extraordinary colors to bacteria that thrive in extreme heat conditions and which live at different temperatures around the pool's edges. The spring's center shines with an intense blue due to light dispersion in the pure and deep water, while proceeding outward, there are successive concentric rings of yellow, orange, red, and brown. These colors, however, change seasonally. In summer, for example, oranges and reds predominate, while in winter, greens and yellows prevail, because different bacterial strains react to temperature variations. Every minute, over 2,000 liters of boiling water flow from this pool, creating steam clouds visible from kilometers away. Mammoth Hot Springs. Limestone terraces succeed one another, creating a natural scenography that recalls ancient Mayan temples. The Mammoth Hot Springs formed over millennia through a fascinating process. Hot water, charged with minerals dissolved from underground rocks, emerges at the surface, depositing calcium carbonate that solidifies into ever-new terrace structures. These formations grow constantly, but unpredictably. Some terraces dry up and become white as plaster, while others remain active with water flowing continuously, depositing new mineral layers. The water temperature varies between 60 and 70 degrees, creating microenvironments where colorful algae and bacteria thrive. The contrast between the pure white of limestone and the pastel colors of active formations creates a surreal landscape, which changes appearance with each visit, making every experience unique and unrepeatable. Upper Geyser Basin. Here, the world's highest density of geysers concentrates. Over 150 active geothermal phenomena distributed across just 2.5 square kilometers. The Upper Geyser Basin represents the pulsing heart of Yellowstone's geothermal activity, where underground energy manifests through spectacular eruptions and bubbling pools. Biscuit Basin, for example, owes its name to mineral formations that once resembled biscuits, destroyed, however, by a 1959 earthquake that modified the entire underground hydraulic system. Today, clear water pools remain, surrounded by colorful mineralogical deposits. Blackpool, instead, despite its name, hasn't been black for decades. The increase in water temperature, in fact, killed the dark bacteria that gave it its characteristic color, transforming it into a brilliant turquoise pool. These changes demonstrate how geothermal systems are in constant evolution, continuously modifying the landscape's appearance in response to invisible but most powerful underground forces. Norris Geyser Basin Trails. The hottest and most acidic geothermal basin in Yellowstone offers a spectacle that defies every expectation. Underground temperatures reach 460 degrees here, while the water's acidity is such that it could dissolve common metals. This extreme combination creates alien landscapes where life adapts to conditions that seem impossible. Wooden walkways succeed one another between smoking pools, with hues ranging from sulfurous yellow to emerald green, passing through electric oranges. Then there's Steamboat Geyser, the world's tallest active geyser, which can erupt up to 90 meters high, although its intervals are completely unpredictable. It can remain dormant for years or erupt multiple times in a week. The smell of sulfur pervades the air, while the ground often vibrates under tourists' feet, precisely due to underground activity. Walking here means crossing a natural laboratory where chemistry and geology meet, creating phenomena that exist in few other places on Earth. Yellowstone Lake. North America's largest high-altitude lake extends for 354 square kilometers at 2,357 meters altitude, hiding beneath its tranquil waters a dramatic geological history. This body of water occupies part of the Yellowstone caldera, formed 640,000 years ago during the last supervolcanic eruption that created the current landscape. The lake's frigid waters, which rarely exceed 15 degrees even in midsummer, host America's largest population of native cutthroat trout. On the lake bottom instead, active hydrothermal craters have been discovered, which create warm water zones in the midst of lacustrine cold. The lake's surface can nevertheless transform rapidly, varying between calm waters that perfectly reflect the surrounding mountains to stormy waves that recall those of a small sea. During winter, finally, ice can reach a thickness of over 1 meter, creating an Arctic landscape in the heart of the Rocky Mountains. Yellowstone River. The longest undammed river in the continental United States originates from the park's Alpine Springs and travels over 1,000 kilometers before confluating into the Missouri. Within Yellowstone, the river carves deep gorges and creates spectacular waterfalls, carrying sediments that color its waters with golden hues, which gave the entire park its name. The river's erosive force has created Yellowstone's Grand Canyon, a 400-meter-deep gorge with multicolored walls which show millions of years of geological history. The exposed rocks reveal traces of ancient hydrothermal activity, which has chemically altered minerals, creating a palette of yellows, reds, and oranges, which change tonality during the day. Along its course, the river also crosses diverse habitats, supporting populations of trout, otters, and numerous waterfowl species. Its banks, moreover, host some of the park's most spectacular wildlife sightings, with bears and wolves often observed while fishing or drinking. Jackson Lake. In the clear waters of Grand Teton Park's largest lake, snow-capped peaks that rise directly from the surface are reflected, creating one of the Rocky Mountains' most photographed views. This natural lake formed during the last ice age, when enormous glaciers carved the depression that today contains its waters. With a maximum depth of 134 meters, Jackson Lake hosts several trout species and constitutes a perfectly preserved high-mountain lacustrine ecosystem. The frigid waters, which rarely exceed 18 degrees, maintain crystalline transparency, allowing observation of the rocky bottom even at several meters depth. Its wooded shores, moreover, offer refuge to elk, deer, and black bears, while fishing eagles and peregrine falcons soar over the surface in search of fish. During dawn and sunset, finally, when grazing light illuminates the mountains, the lake becomes a perfect mirror, which doubles the landscape's majesty. Jenny Lake. Set in a glacial cirque at Grand Teton's feet, this alpine jewel represents the perfect example of how Ice Age glaciers sculpted the Rocky Mountain landscape. This lake owes its name to Jenny Lee, wife of a famous guide and trapper of the region, and is considered one of the most scenic lakes in the entire Teton system. Its elongated shape and strategic position offer marvelous views of the surrounding mountain's vertical walls, while the trail that borders it represents one of the park's most beloved excursions. The turquoise waters, fed by melting perennial snowfields, maintain cool temperatures even during summer. The terminal moraine that closes the valley instead creates a natural dam that retains the lake's waters, while the spruce and pine forests growing on the shores offer shade and refuge to local fauna. During autumn, the quaking aspens that dot the shores turn gold, creating spectacular chromatic contrasts with the blue of the waters and the gray of the rocks. Snake River. The great water serpent that crosses western Wyoming has carved for millennia one of the Rocky Mountains' most fertile and scenic valleys. This river originates in Yellowstone's mountains and travels over 1,000 kilometers before confluating into the Columbia, but it's its stretch through Jackson Hole that creates the most memorable landscapes. Its waters carry sediments from surrounding mountains, nourishing ecosystems that host beavers, otters, and over 200 bird species. During reproduction season, millions of insects emerge from the waters, creating clouds that attract trout and birds in an explosion of life. The river's meanders, moreover, draw sinuous curves in the valley, while its wooded shores offer some of Wyoming's most spectacular wildlife sightings. Elk cross the waters at sunset, black bears fish during salmon runs, and bald eagles glide, following thermal currents that rise from the water's surface. Yellowstone Falls. At the point where the Yellowstone River plunges into the park's Grand Canyon, two spectacular waterfalls create one of America's most photographed scenarios. The lower falls dive 94 meters into a gorge with multicolored walls, while the roar of water crashing on rocks can be heard kilometers away. These waterfalls' erosive force has contributed to carving the canyon over 150,000 years, exposing geological layers that tell the region's volcanic history. The yellow rocks, which give the park its name, are particularly evident here, where hydrothermal alteration has transformed lavas into colored clays. A little further upstream instead are the upper falls, which drop for 33 meters, less tall but still impressive, especially when the sun creates rainbows in the water mist. In winter, the waterfalls transform into monumental ice sculptures, while in spring, snowmelt makes the water flow even more impetuous and dramatic. Firehole River. A watercourse with unique characteristics crosses Yellowstone's geothermal heart, heated by the hundreds of hot springs that pour into its banks. The name Firehole derives from early explorers who were amazed to find a warm river in the middle of winter, with steam rising from the surface, even when external temperature dropped below zero. In fact, water temperature can vary from 10 degrees of cold springs to 30 degrees in zones most influenced by geothermal activity. This particularity creates unique microenvironments where tropical fish could theoretically survive, although the ecosystem is dominated by trout adapted to these special conditions. The shores therefore host some of Yellowstone's most famous geysers, while the meadows that border it become ideal habitat for bison and elk during winter months. Jackson Hole. It's not a hole in the ground as the name might suggest, but a mountain valley 80 kilometers long, surrounded by some of the most spectacular peaks in North America. Jackson Hole owes its name to 19th century explorers who called enclosed mountain valleys holes, and in this case, it was Davy Jackson who renamed the valley. This tectonic depression formed when the land block forming the valley floor lowered relative to surrounding mountains, creating a natural amphitheater that rises from the valley floor's 1,900 meters to Grand Teton's 4,200 meters. The result is a landscape of extreme contrasts, where historic ranches alternate with primitive forests. The valley hosts one of the continent's richest wildlife concentrations, with elk herds that migrate seasonally, grizzly and black bears, wolves, moose, bison, and over 300 bird species. During winter, Jackson Hole becomes refuge for thousands of animals that descend from mountains in search of food and shelter, creating unique wildlife viewing opportunities in the world. Lamar Valley. Nicknamed America's Serengeti, this valley in Yellowstone's heart offers some of North America's most spectacular wildlife sightings. Lamar Valley extends for over 15 kilometers along the river of the same name, creating open prairies surrounded by wooded hills that provide perfect habitat for the park's large mammals. It's here that in 1995, wolves were reintroduced after an absence of almost 70 years, completely transforming the ecosystem through what biologists call trophic cascade. In fact, predators' presence has modified herbivores' behaviors, allowing vegetation recovery near shores and the return of numerous bird species and small mammals. At dawn and sunset, when golden light illuminates the prairies, bison herds cross the valley, while elk and deer move at forest edges. Finally, every season brings different but always exciting spectacles. Star Valley. A hidden valley between Idaho and western Wyoming mountains offers bucolic landscapes that recall alpine Switzerland. Star Valley owes its poetic name to crystalline nights at high altitude, where the absence of light pollution allows observation of thousands of stars, which reflect in the valley's numerous lakes and waterways. Founded by Mormon pioneers at the end of the 19th century, the valley still conserves today an authentic rural atmosphere, with historic ranches, cultivated fields, and small mountain communities. The mountains surrounding it exceed 3,000 meters in altitude, created by the superimposition of rock layers, 500 million years old. During winter, Star Valley transforms into a snowy paradise, with snow that can reach thicknesses of over 2 meters, isolating local communities but creating landscapes of absolute purity. Sunlight Basin. A natural amphitheater opens between the Absaroka Range peaks, where glacial streams wind through alpine meadows, which catch fire at the first morning sunray. Sunlight Basin owes its evocative name precisely to this phenomenon, namely when dawn illuminates rock walls, golden light reflects on stream waters, creating incredible glimmers. Rolling valleys extend through spruce and pine forests, where grizzly bears emerge from woods. The trails crossing the basin wind between streams and alpine meadows, where solitary wolves and golden eagles roam, exploiting thermal currents. Moreover, the Sunlight Creek Bridge crosses the main stream, connecting this remote world to the rest of Wyoming. Cheyenne. Wyoming's capital rises in the eastern high plains, where the prairie's infinite horizon meets the sky in a perfect line, which disappears at the horizon. Cheyenne owes its existence to the Transcontinental Railroad. In fact, it was founded in 1867 as a frontier town along the Union Pacific Railroad, and has preserved the character of the American Far West while becoming the state's political and economic center. The name derives from the Cheyenne tribe, although these Native Americans rarely inhabited the area permanently, preferring to follow bison herds across the Great Plains. The city hosts every July the world's largest outdoor rodeo, which transforms this quiet capital into a crossroads of cowboys, tourists, and Western traditions. The historic center's Victorian architecture, moreover, contrasts with the surrounding prairie's immensity, where ranches of thousands of hectares extend to the horizon. Afton. In Star Valley's heart, this small mountain community is famous for the Elk Antler Arch that crosses the main street, created with over 3,000 male deer antlers collected from surrounding mountains. Afton preserves the authentic atmosphere of Wyoming's pioneering communities, where rural traditions and frontier values are passed from generation to generation. The town is strategically located between the Salt River and Wyoming Range Mountains, surrounded by national forests that host one of North America's most numerous deer populations. The natural hot springs in Afton's surroundings flow from Earth's depths at constant temperatures year-round, creating oases of warmth even during the harshest winters. These mineral waters were considered sacred by Native American tribes and today offer refuge and relaxation after days spent exploring the surrounding mountains' wild nature. Ghost town of Piedmont. Among southwestern Wyoming's barren hills lie the remains of what was once a thriving railroad community. Piedmont was born in 1868 along the Union Pacific Railroad as a coal and lumber production center, rapidly reaching 2,000 inhabitants before disappearing just as quickly when resources were exhausted. Today, only stone foundations covered by grass remain, and walking among these ruins means touching firsthand how precarious frontier life was. The families who built homes and businesses here believed they were founding a town destined to grow for generations. But Wyoming's implacable nature once again demonstrated who truly commands in these territories. Red Desert. An ocean of red earth extends infinitely in south-central Wyoming, where wind sculpts dunes and rock formations in a landscape that seems to belong to Mars. The red desert owes its intense colors to oxidized iron deposits, which tint sand and rock with hues ranging from pale pink to blood red, creating panoramas that change tonality during the day, following the sun's position. This high-altitude desert, located over 2,000 meters in elevation, represents one of North America's most extreme ecosystems, where life adapts to conditions that challenge every limit. Temperatures oscillating between 40 degrees in summer and negative 40 in winter, scarce precipitation and constant winds have created an environment where only the most resistant species manage to survive. Flaming Gorge Recreation Area. Where the Green River has carved for millions of years canyons with red walls, a dam has created one of the American West's most spectacular artificial basins. Flaming Gorge extends for over 140 kilometers through Utah and Wyoming, creating a dramatic contrast between the lake's turquoise waters and the canyon's red rocks. The name derives from explorer Powell, who in 1869 described these red sandstone walls as flames of solid rock. The canyon's geology reveals 500 million years of terrestrial history through perfectly visible layers, while the lake's waters host trout and kokanee salmon, with rocky shores serving as habitat for bighorn sheep and bald eagles. During summer, the basin's calm waters contrast with the wild rapids of the Green River downstream from the dam, creating two completely different aquatic ecosystems within the space of just a few kilometers. Green River Lakes. A chain of alpine lakes hidden in the Wind River Mountains creates some of Wyoming's most pristine scenarios, where crystalline waters reflect granitic peaks that rise directly from shores. These bodies of water formed when ancient glaciers carved circular depressions in rock, leaving behind a rosary of lakes connected by waterfalls and streams. Access to these lakes requires demanding hikes through territories where bears and cougars move freely, but the reward is the possibility to fish native trout in waters that rarely see human presence, surrounded by scenery of primitive beauty. High altitude makes these lakes frozen until June, while summer nights can see temperatures below zero even in midsummer. Moreover, the alpine flora surrounding shores explodes in spectacular blooms during the brief mountain summer, creating carpets of color that last only a few weeks per year. Shell Creek. From the Bighorn Mountains descends a watercourse that has created one of eastern Wyoming's most spectacular canyons, where limestone walls rise for hundreds of meters above clear waters. Shell Creek has carved for millions of years through rock layers, today exposing marine fossils, which testify when these mountains lay beneath ancient oceans. The canyon hosts one of the American Plains' richest concentrations of petroglyphs and pictographs, where native tribes have left testimonies of their presence for over 10,000 years. These rock carvings document hunting scenes, religious ceremonies, and stellar maps, which demonstrate the profound spiritual connection between first inhabitants and these landscapes. Finally, the canyon's walls create unique microclimates, which permit the survival of plant species usually present at more northern latitudes, while natural pools along the creek offer refuge to trout and salamanders unique to this region. This is Wyoming, a kaleidoscope of natural wonders that challenge imagination. And if you want to explore other fantastic places in America and around the world, choose from our playlist that you'll find here on the right.